Cassie and argue with this lady said. And so we need to be looking at the cultural issue as well. That's the fundamental issue. It's not just about you sign a piece of paper and you can make an NDA, keep you quiet or whatever. The culture is telling women that actually you can be treated this way because you happen to be in this space, and all that keeps everything above board is the legality. And unfortunately, the culture is our problem. It's not the problem of the federal prosecutors. It's the problem of us as a society, the PAs, the people that are handling their press releases, the lawyers, everyone. They are part of the culture, that culture of subservience, and allowing these people to do things that are legally above board but are horrible and just quite vile. I feel sorry for Cassie because I do think the prosecutors misled her. The case was very, very shoddy on many levels. You can't have a conspiracy with just one person. That's not a conspiracy, that's a thought. And so I think in many ways that case was always going to fall through. But I do think that these girls have been let down by a culture that has boiled down appropriate behavior to just legality and consent.
Okay, DJ Vlad, you posted on X after the verdicts came in, Cassie is guilty of the same prostitution charges Diddy was just convicted of. I interviewed 3 of the male escorts. All 3 of them said the same thing. Cassie picked them, contacted them for free costs, enjoyed the experiences and paid them. Meanwhile, she's sitting on $30 million and writing letters to the judge asking him not to give Diddy bail. So pretty clear what your view is of Cassie Ventura there. What do you think should happen to her?
I mean, personally, I think she should be charged with the same thing that Diddy was charged with. Ultimately, he was convicted of prostitution. She was involved in the prostitution. Every male escort that I talked to said that she was the one picking the actual male prostitutes. She would book them. She enjoyed every experience. She was sort of guiding the whole thing while they were together, and she was the one that actually paid them. Ultimately, this is a domestic violence case that's ballooned into a RICO and sex trafficking and so forth. What Diddy did to Cassie in that hallway was absolutely horrible, but that is not what the trial was about. It was about RICO. It was about sex trafficking, neither of which made sense in this particular trial. And if you want to actually convict her for prostitution, Cassie is just as liable for that same prostitution that Diddy got convicted of, but she was given immunity in the whole situation. So I just feel it's really just a messed up situation.
That's a completely ridiculous stance, because you know what the consequences of her... You know what the consequences of her not booking those prostitutes? We saw it in that hallway in the hotel, in an international chain hotel that were happy to take $50,000 to wipe it off the face of the earth. Those are the consequences. If she hadn't done that, it is very likely that she would have been manhandled in that way, even in the street, and someone would have been able to wipe the footage of that. I appreciate the fact that she hold on.
Case, which has nothing to do with
I appreciate the fact that she was
not charged with domestic violence. You're talking about a totally different situation.
I guess the question, Vlad, I guess the question that Esther's posing there really is, did she go along so apparently consensually with all the freak off stuff, with all these escorts, because she...
To that.
Well, hang on. My question, did she go along with it in the apparently consensual way because she was in fear of retribution from Diddy in the way we saw with the beating?
All right, welcome to Ace Honest Takes. I'm your host, Ace, and please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. I also will put the content creators information down in the description as well. So as you guys heard, right, DJ Vlad, I agree with him 110%. And not saying Diddy's right, but it really was some trumped up charges that they try to get Diddy on. And it was a domestic violence case, a domestic violence situation. We all saw the video. It's not, everyone's seen the video at this point, right? So, of course, he is guilty of that. However, I'm not an apologist or nothing like that. I look at it as, if the crime happens, say the crime when it happens. All right. If somebody was to do something to me that I felt like was, something that I'd need to call the authorities for me to go ahead and get, my retribution or whatever, right? My day in court, I'm going to do that. Right now. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, hey, he's a narcissist and he made her do this and he made her do that and all this other kind of stuff like that. You can say what you want to say, but at the end of the day, she could have gone to the authorities whenever she wanted to go. She didn't want to go to the authorities, right? You know what I'm saying? I think that she was enjoying the lifestyle. I think that he provided a life that she probably would have never got without him, of course. And I think that when she ended up just kind of going through what she was going through, after she left Diddy, and her husband, who is a physical therapist, or he's a whatever, like a trainer or something like that, right? They weren't making the money, so that's when she decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get this lawsuit and try to get some money from Diddy. Cool. Now, my issue with that whole thing is, if you're going to do it, like I said, do it when it happened. Don't wait 15, 35, 110 years before you say, hey, somebody did something to me, right? Nah, you really didn't want that person to go down at that point in time. So I don't want to hear about it. For me, that's just my personal opinion. Put down in the comments if you feel like I'm right, if you feel like I'm wrong, but that's just the way I feel about it as well, right? And I think that the actual, the government, the feds, and everybody else, like, they really didn't think that they had a lot on Diddy, but they only had really one witness, which was Cassie, right? So without that video, would they had even brought this to anybody's attention? We don't know. But I think that they tried to get Diddy guilty in the court of public opinion, quote unquote. And I think at this point in time, we're kind of out this Me Too movement where, you can say something happened and you're automatically just out of here, right? I think we've already passed that. So I'm gonna let them keep going, and let's see.
No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, this was an artist that had one hit song 20-something years ago. She had the ability to leave at any point. She was signed to a label, but labels leave artists that don't react constantly. She could have went. She stayed because she wanted to be in that particular situation. Now, people are going to argue with me and so forth, but at the end of the day, she stayed because there was no one else that was offering her a record deal. There's no one else that was spending millions of dollars on her. There's no one else that was showering her with gifts. So she decided to stay. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when the money ran out, when she married a broke fitness trainer and had to go move back in with her parents, the money completely ran out. Then it's like, okay, let's sue Diddy and let's get $20 million out of it.
Literally just
that is my take on it. That's always been my take. That always will be my take.
Okay, Tony Buzbee, let me bring you in here. Just first off, what do we think is going to happen to Diddy here? What sentence are you anticipating?
I'm expecting 2 to 4 years. I would expect. I mean, he's not going to get 20 years, obviously. He's already has time served. There's going to be some mitigating factors. He doesn't have a prior record. However, there are some issues within the case that might be reasons for the judge to go a little bit higher than perhaps normal. But I would expect 2 to 4 years.
What is your feeling? You've obviously represented many Diddy victims in civil actions. You had over 100 people come to you with various allegations. What impact does this verdict have on the suits that you want to proceed with?
Zero. I mean, I was listening to Vlad there for a minute, and I'm sure that same kind of argument took place in the jury room. I mean, people have a hard time putting their head around a situation where somebody might consent one day and not consent the next. And there are people in this world that believe, well, you've consented once, so therefore you're consenting for life. That is not what the law says, and I can understand why there may have been people on that jury that had the same point of view, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that there's a lot of psychological issues here that people really don't understand about trauma bonding and how somebody might feel compelled to do something that they really don't want to do. But even if they said no one time, that is not consent. And I think in this trial, and we didn't have the benefit, or at least I didn't have the benefit of watching it day to day and seeing each witness and hearing how they said the things they said. All I was able to see was the transcript that I would receive on a daily basis. Obviously, the jury thought that the RICO situation was complete baloney. They thought, apparently, that this was not a RICO situation. There was no conspiracy, and they were trying to put a round peg into a square hole or vice versa. I did think that, given the testimony that I saw, that there were instances where Cassie and Jane were forced to do things, either through financial pressure or through extortion-type pressure or through force, things that they did not want to do.
But the interesting thing on that, Tony, is that the jury clearly...
All right, so if you guys aren't familiar with Tony Buzbee, he is really more or less he's a celebrity ambulance chaser. That's the best way I can put it, right? He's a celebrity ambulance chaser. For example, hey, he'll pull out like a hotline. If you had someone that, you went to a party and you felt woozy, right? Give me a call. Or, hey, did you do drugs with a celebrity? Give me a call, right? Like he's one of those kind of guys where he's just trying to shake you down. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that he also has a case against not only Jay-Z as well as like Shannon Sharp and some other prominent individuals as well, right? Not saying that they're wrong, but a lot of the cases that he's taken on are really, really, really kind of, just shots in the dark to where he's just like, hey, you know what? Give me $5 million, give me $10 million, and this won't go to, the public, right? So that's who he is. If you guys aren't familiar with who Tony Buzbee is.
Really did not believe either woman when it came to any issue about consensuality. They just didn't believe any of it. I think pretty much across the board, it was clear they had not bought in to the suggestion that any of this was non-consensual.
No question. I mean, I think you're right. And sometimes juries do things that we don't expect. I go back to whether, each instance that this happened, did he have consent each time? And I see Vlad's point. There were times when it looked like that Cassie was involved in setting some of these
Well,
events.
there's no question of that. I interviewed the Punisher, the guy who gave evidence. He gave very powerful, eloquent evidence. And I've interviewed him several times. He's a very good talker, and he had no real kind of skin in the game. In fact, he was brought from the prosecution to give evidence, but actually ended up being a pretty powerful witness for the defense, it turned out, because what he said was everything was done through Cassie Ventura and seemed very consensual. Went on for over 2 years, a dozen or so encounters in hotels where Diddy just sat in the corner saying nothing. She booked him, she paid him, she organized it, everything was driven by her. She seemed to have a good time, everyone was happy. I thought that was very powerful evidence actually for Diddy, because it seemed to contradict everything that they were trying to position it as, which was this was all coercion.
Let me offer this up. The government settled in on using two alleged victims. They used Cassie and they used Jane. Early on, when this all started, we were contacted by the U.S. Attorney, and they asked us, can we speak to some of your clients? So we went to, and they told us, these are the ones we want to speak to. We made those people available. They talked to a couple of those people. But I think by that point, their team had decided that they had what they needed. They had the goods, if you will, to proceed with Jane and with Cassie. I think that was a mistake. I will say, as I watched the trial, or at least learned about the trial daily as it went on, I thought the government was doing what they needed to do to get a conviction. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Obviously, they did not believe that they believed that Diddy had consent, and they didn't believe there was a conspiracy. And obviously, the transportation to commit prostitution, that was pretty cut and dried. And I think everybody, no matter which side you fall out on, believed that there would be a conviction there.
But there is a point, isn't there, that which Vlad made, I thought, pretty compellingly, that if you're going to convict Diddy and you don't believe that it was non-consensual and Cassie did all the booking, why is she not being charged? And could it be that the reason that she turned on Diddy was to preempt potentially some legal exposure herself?
We'll never know that. They gave her immunity early on, and they that's the horse they rode with, and we see what happened.
Well, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think consent without fear of consequences is not, with fear of consequences, is not actually consent. So if you were going against Cassie, for example, and you're going to try her, all she has to do is show you that video and just say, look at what happens if I didn't do that. Now, I don't think it reached the threshold for the jury for RICO, which I completely understand. Like I said, a conspiracy that involves one is a thought. But this is why I say this is not a problem for the courts. It's a problem for culture and society. Cassie met P. Diddy when she was 17 years old. She signed a 10-album deal with P. Diddy by the age of like 20 or 21, which is virtually unheard of in this industry. I mean, I'm sorry, she wasn't Beethoven. She didn't have the kind of talent that would warrant that kind of record deal. She was clearly groomed. Now, amongst all of that, could you...
I do not agree with that at all, right? To say, yeah, she met him at 17, but then she didn't get her record deal until she was 21. Now, these record deals have always, and from I'm not in the industry, but you can hear all the different artists once they get later on in life, hey, I signed a bad deal. Hey, I signed a bad deal. Hey, I signed a bad deal, right? And Diddy and Bad Boy were one of the companies that were signing people to bad deals, right? You can go look at the Locks. You can go look at Mace. You can go look at everybody, really, honestly, that he ever had. Like, they've all had bad deals. So just to say, well, hey, you know, Cassie has a 10 album deal, right? Is all the deals have been bad. So it's not just like she's just one of the few people that just had a bad deal. Everybody that went from Bad Boy had a bad deal. Every majority of these record labels give bad deals because they know for a fact that these are kids or individuals out of the hood that just will sign anything and they'll give their life to it. So for her point, I'm hearing what she's saying, but I'm not rocking with what she's saying.
You say she could have got up and left? Okay, arguably, yes.
It was within 10 years.
Yes, but the thing is, he
She was within 10 years, and the Punisher was very clear.
Yes.
She
So he
did
paid
not
her
give
rent.
any impression to him of being
That's what she
anything but
said.
a
Yes,
very
he paid her rent.
enthusiastic and willing
Yes, he paid her rent. That's why she stayed. She could leave whenever she wanted to. But yes, he paid her rent. Okay.
participant. It's
but
quite
it's
kinky
nuanced.
stuff.
Look at what happened when she tried to break up with him and date, what's his name, the rapper. Who had his car blown up. I mean, it's not that cut and dry. This, I feel like...
Because we've had lots of chats through the Me Too era and stuff, and obviously one of the things people are saying about this is that, in a way, it signals the beginning of the end of that Me Too movement, because for a long time, everyone was encouraged to believe women accusers. The moment they made allegations, they had to be believed. That was always, to me, a very dangerous proposition. It should always be they should be taken seriously. The allegations should be investigated properly, and then decisions should be made about whether there had been a crime. Very dangerous to believe accusers before you actually know whether they're telling the truth.
Agreed.
But here we've got a situation, I think, where if he'd been in this case 3-4 years ago, he would have gone down.
I don't think
And then
that's
the jury, I suspect, has moved.
If you're still here, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Like I said, this is a good back and forth, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think the whole Me Too issue was a separate kind of beast. P. Diddy and the environment that he exists in, the hip-hop industry, is a completely different kind of sleaze. And also, it was very cut and dry from the
Is it though? Is it any different to Harvey Weinstein, who claimed that a lot of what his stuff was transactional? I mean, he was convicted of rape and sexual abuse and so on. So obviously, again, juries didn't agree. But he painted a picture of a lot of kind of transactional relationships with people, right, where he believed this was all part of the sort of casting couch deal. That again has been, that's dinosaur stuff and was outrageous and wrong and everything else, and it turned out to be criminal as well. But I don't think there's much difference in the attitude.
There is a difference. I think hip-hop has always come under fire for being quite sleazy. I mean, you can't listen to a hip-hop track from 20 years ago without hearing the N-word or bitch. It's always been quite sleazy. They've always been quite actually vocal about the fact that they treat women like pieces of meat. And the women a lot of the time are happy to be treated that way because they get a lot from it.
So that's interesting, isn't it, Vlad? Because that is part of that hip-hop culture.
I do agree with her on that. You can listen to music, right? Because like I said, a lot of these record labels, they're ran by certain people, right? And you can make the most positive songs ever in the history of the world. But if you don't have a record label that want to put money behind that song to make that song go, right? And like I said, it could be the greatest song, but if you don't have money behind that song, it's just nothing in a sense, right? And so you have a lot of these record labels and radios and everybody else that they want negativity, right? That's why you have Love and Hip Hop and all these negative shows that they want to put those on TV. They don't want to put the good stuff on TV to show how things can possibly be, why it should be a positive kind of outlook, right? And so I do agree with her on that, with what she's saying, because hip hop, that's what it's been based off of. It's just money, cars, clothes, and hoes, and that's always what it's going. That's always what it's been, and that's always what it's going to be. So I definitely do agree with her on that.
No doubt, a lot of women have embraced that kind of very misogynist language, the lyrics, and so on and so on. Is your feeling about what happened here with Cassie Ventura and Diddy that she was, notwithstanding the violence which would erupt more than once, we know there were other occasions when he was violent to her, that she enjoyed her life around this superstar rapper, notwithstanding that?
I don't understand the question. Can you...
Well, that she accepted the violence and was prepared to stay in the relationship because she enjoyed everything else.
Yes.
I think there was a very violent relationship. I think it was a drug-fueled relationship. I think there was lots of money and fame and jet-setting involved. At the end of the day, I think what happened to her was horrible. I think that tape showed just how bad the domestic violence was. But at the end of the day, this is not what the trial was about. The trial was about RICO. The trial was about sex trafficking. The trial was about prostitution. In fact, the only reason Diddy got convicted was because it was interstate commerce. All the other male escorts that I've talked to, like for example, I talked to Don the dealer, who also had multiple sessions with Cassie. She said she was loving it. She was into it. She was setting the direction. At the end of the day, you could stay in a bad relationship, but you decide to stay in that bad relationship. This is really about the domestic violence, but the domestic violence goes back past the statute of limitations. So if you think about it, in this whole case, all the escorts I talked to were not sent to a different state or a different country. They were all local. Like Don the Dealer was in Miami. Punisher was in New York. If all these guys didn't travel across state lines, there would be no case at all. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
And with Tony Buzbee, at the end of the day, like he said, that the feds talked to multiple people that he's representing that were suing, but they decided not to use any of them, which makes me think that there wasn't any real credible real evidence that they actually did anything wrong in the whole situation. Therefore, there's only two people that are actually used. The only person that filed a lawsuit that was used in this case was Cassie. And there's over 100 lawsuits. So what does that say? That says the lawsuits are all nonsense.
I listened to you. And some of the,
Which of your clients was used in this case?
Let's be clear about
Which of your
something.
clients was used in this case?
Hey, listen very carefully. If the alleged assault happened in LA, there was nobody flown in, there was nobody coerced and trafficked across state lines, they wouldn't use the client, obviously. These cases that we have filed in New York are filed under a New York statute for sexual assault and sexual abuse. That's completely different than transportation for prostitution or for sexual trafficking, and certainly has nothing to do with RICO. So you just made this grand conclusion that, the U.S. attorney talked to a few of these folks and decided they had no credibility. You were flat out wrong in that respect. Because what they may have...
None of them were used. None of them were used. How am I wrong if none of them were used?
Decided is that there was nothing that happened across state lines, and there was no sexual trafficking, which is what the case was all about. So it has nothing to do with whether these people were credible or not. Their case is a civil case alleging state law claims of assault after being drugged. That was not the case that was brought by the U.S. attorney, and frankly, that's not a case that could be brought by the U.S. attorney, and which is the point
that accused Jay-Z and Diddy of raping her when she was 13, and we all saw it was all nonsense. It was absolutely false. It was absolutely false. She said Good Charlotte was there. They weren't there. She was 13.
You're like the mailman. You're like the mailman.
Nonsense. Jay-Z sued you over that. Come on. Like you have a long history, not
giving you a little bit of information,
a long history,
all these
long history.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
You won a single lawsuit with any of these people you represented. A single lawsuit.
Literally 30 days ago for $640 million, pal. So don't be telling me about winning lawsuits.
With Diddy?
More lawsuits than any lawyer in the United States.
With Jay-Z. How many lawsuits have you won against Diddy and Jay-Z? How many lawsuits have you won against Diddy and Jay-Z?
None went to trial yet, knucklehead. Think about it. You file a case for the trial. Wait and see.
You won nothing.
Okay.
Honestly, like I said, I think that Tony Buzbee is just one of those ambulance chasing lawyers. He's just trying to just throw stuff up against the wall, knowing that it's not going to stick. But sometimes when certain allegations come out about somebody who's in a prominent position, right, it's a lot easier for them to just go ahead and pay up now and just say, hey, you know what, screw it, I'm going to just pay this person, even though it's some bullshit, just to get it out of the way because it might hold up another situation or another deal that they might have on the table, right? You know what I'm saying? Somebody saying, hey, this person, essay, me or whatever the situation is. And that can hold up a lot. Even if it's false, people are going to look at the fact that it was said. And even if it's false, people are still going to not really give you the grace, even if it was not about, even if it was totally, completely false. It's the fact that someone said that. and people already judge you and really kind of like talk down on you, and you never done anything. You probably never even met the person. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, it's bad out here. But hey, once again, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And once again, I'm your host, Ace, and this is Ace Honest Takes. I'm out. Peace.